What could be more British than that?
Well, I can think of one thing.
A really good cup of nice strong tea.
After air and water, tea is the most consumed substance on the planet, with over 3.2 million tonnes of the stuff brewed, poured and enjoyed every year.
That's a lot of tea.
But without the British Empire, we might never have fallen in love with the leaf. Although tea's been around for over 5,000 years, it didn't reach Europe until the 17th century, and it didn't really take off in Britain until Charles II's Portuguese wife demanded it, instantly making it fashionable amongst the well-to-do set in court.
But tea remained eye-wateringly expensive, costing the equivalent of £1,000 a pound, and it could only come from one source: China.
So to break China's monopoly on tea, we first needed a few tea plants.
The name's Fortune. Bob Fortune.
In the 1840s, Robert Fortune, a Scottish botanist with a name made for spying, was sent by the empire-building British East India Company to smuggle tea plants out of China, risking execution if he was captured.
Disguised as a Chinese merchant, he snuck out 20,000 saplings into northern India, smuggling them in portable greenhouses.
And within 50 years, India was producing more tea than China, feeding the habit back in Blighty.
Wherever tea would grow in the British Empire, it was planted, and soon enough tea was being imported from Kenya and Sri Lanka.
Britain has £15 million invested in the tea gardens, where Kenya looks like Ceylon or Assam.
Tea prices fell massively, and what was once the drink of nobility soon became the first choice for the masses. Morning, noon and night.
And not much has changed since. We're still the second biggest drinkers of tea on the planet, only being pipped to the post by our neighbours, the Republic of Ireland.
So whether you prefer jasmine or chamomile, lapsang souchong or builders with 2 sugars, get a brew on the go. Sit back and enjoy, because nothing beats a good cuppa.
Tea time. Cheers, boys.
Cheers! I think it's about time we had tea for 2, Kingy.
Yep, and as fond as we are of drinking it, there's nothing stopping you from cooking with it either.
We've created what we believe is going to become a new classic.
Do you know what it is? It's chai, as in chai, the tea, bread and butter pudding.
Chai that you get in India, it's spiced tea, it's sweet and milky. And we had an idea, wouldn't it be great to use that as a basis for a bread and butter pudding? It's like bread and butter pudding gone bonkers.
It has.
Now, we're going to cut this lovely, beautiful, buttery, gorgeous brioche into 12 slices. And we're going to place those in, it's about a 2-litre dish, this.
It's interesting with bread and butter pudding. Well, we've made bread and butter puddings with white sliced bread, with croissants,
Yes.
with tea bread, with tea cakes, but brioche is posh, isn't it? It's so full of butter. Anyway, whilst King is busy sawing bread, I'll knock us up some chai. Now, I'm going to start off by doing my spices. I want 15 green cardamoms in their pods and 8 cloves. Quite specific about the cloves, because put too many cloves in, it'll taste like the dentist's. And we give that a crush. And that's the wonderful thing about using whole spices. They're fragrant. When you bash them, you give them a good beating, they release all that lovely aroma.
Now, while Dave's bashing these spices, what I'm going to do is liberally butter the interior of this 2-litre oven-proof dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to butter one side of this beautiful brioche.
I've got some milk, about 500 ml of milk, and chai is very milky tea. And that's the cloves and the cardamom. And I put the shells in as well, everything, because we're going to strain this before we use it, so don't worry. To that, we want a stick of cinnamon. And spices were one of the great gifts of the empire.
There was many a life lost in the pursuit of securing those spice roots.
Oh, crumbs, yes. Chai is also milky, spicy, and it's sweet. In fact, you go to a tea stall in India, and it's so sweet, it takes your breath away. Here we're dropping in about 150 grams of caster sugar, More spice, half a nutmeg. And now a spoonful and a half of ground ginger. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. And now the tea. And we use Indian tea or black tea, so 2 tablespoons. It's a strong brew. 2. Now with me peeler, I want a nice big piece of orange peel. For me citrus notes, look at that, pop that in. To temper the sweetness, half a teaspoon of salt. And just let that simmer for 5 minutes, and then we let that go cold.
And as well as the temper and the sweetness, mate, doesn't it? That savoury note just bolsters all of those fantastic spices, and they just sit there in all their glory.
Smell that, mate.
Oh, hey, man. Oh,
Whoa!
Get in. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to start to build our bread and butter pudding. So we've got 125 grams of mixed fruit and peel. So we're going to do it like a brick, like bricklaying, right? So you need to stand them up.
It takes you back to your days working on the roast, doesn't it?
It does, I love it. Exactly that. So I just pepper them, and then to the side, just layer it up.
This has been simmering for 5 minutes. Turn the heat off, and that needs to infuse for 15 minutes. Then we strain that, and we've got the most wonderfully spice-infused chai.
Pass the stop and let it pour when the clock strikes 4. Everything stops for tea.
Here, whilst the chai's cooling, why don't you do the custard?
Very good, Mr. King. We'll start with 2 whole eggs, and then an additional 4 yolks.
So, see how we've done that, look. Bricks. And then what we're going to do, we're going to cut the other 4 slices that's left over in half. And we're going to fill the gaps in here, you see. All these gaps, where there's a big gap, fill it up with bread.
The eggs a whisk. And we'll whisk the eggs together with 300 millilitres of double cream.
And any of the dried fruit and peel that you have left, just sprinkle it over the top. Mate, that's it, ready to rock and roll.
Right, well here I've got my eggs and my cream. This spiced chai, it's infused and it's cold. So basically, I'm just going to sieve this straight into the cream and the eggs. And it has gone cold, so obviously I'm not going to scramble my eggs, which would be a bad thing.
Oh, man.
That's a lot of flavour in there.
That's the elixir of everything Indian.
Yep, and just whisk that. And that's the chai-infused cream and eggs, which is the custard of the bread and butter pudding. Shall we?
We should.
Now we need to do this slowly. It's going to take a few stages while it soaks it in. And at first you think this is never going to go in, but trust us. This is like the most wonderful, elaborate, original bread and butter pudding you've ever seen.
It's like eggy bread on steroids, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it? There we go.
That's all going to soak in and soak through, but just open the layers up a little bit with your knife.
We'll leave this for 15 minutes to allow the custard to soak in.
Now, how do we cook it?
We'll cook this in a bain-marie because it's a custard and we want it just to set and cook evenly.
A bain-marie's basically a water bath. It'll keep the temperatures even around the whole pudding bowl, setting our custard perfectly.
Stick it in an oven, preheated 160 degrees Celsius for a fan oven, and bake it till the custard's set, which is about 35 or 40 minutes.
Wait till you see this.
Fantastic.
Get in. Let's remove it from its water bath. Which is easier said than done.
Now, there is quite a lot of cream and eggs and kind of fattening stuff in there, but that's going to serve 8 people easily. And that is perfect. Look at that, the custard's just set. It's a lava flow of flavour. Do you think we've done it, Kingy? The ultimate bread and butter pudding?
I hope so.
The cross-cultural fertilisation of a traditional...
Where nations collide in a pudding.
Oh, why?
You've got to make it at home. It's brilliant.
It is brilliant.